44.2% said yes. That's a lot of people that think aliens exist. A lot of people over here said a lot of people said no, but everybody here is wrong. And so when I said, are you open to the thought of their existence? 85.7% said yes. That's crazy. So, when I asked, do you think they communicate with the government? 55.8% said no. They're wrong, but they just don't know it. So, before I get started with my whole ed talk, keep in mind that Dwight D. Eisenhower had his presidency terms from January 20th, 1953 to January 20th of 1961. So, Betty and Barney Hill are a couple that was driving home late at night, around 12 at midnight over here on Route 3 in New Hampshire. And on their way home, they had noticed this little ball of light on in the sky just following them. And as they kept driving home, they noticeably saw this object get closer. And as it got closer, Betty floored on the car gas and just started driving, but all of a sudden the car shut down and they were unable to move. This big ball of light flew up to the car and then flew away. However, when Betty and Barney Hill looked down at their watch, they'd each noticed 2 hours of missing time. And as you can see, when Betty had gone under hypnosis, she had drawn this constellation of what the beings were supposedly from. And it wasn't until years later did they discover the actual constellation that Betty had drawn that night. So here's a clothing item of Betty's dress. Barney's shoes were scuffed up and everything. But here's a little picture of what happens that I had taken. As you can see, the UFO is right there. But then this silly head got out of the car. That's a no-no. So Bob Lazar he's an S4 worker, and S4 is an area located south of Area 51 at the base of the Papoose Mountains. And he claimed that the ships had ran on element 115. However, this element had not been discovered yet, and hadn't been discovered until years later in a lab in Sweden in 2003. So I've got a video that will Bob start talking about the element.
Weighing next to nothing. That's from people.
00 to 130.
Sweden, August 27th, 2013. Researchers confirm the existence of a new element on the periodic table created through nuclear fusion. They name it unintentium, or element 115. Although most scientists still don't know much about this unique radioactive component, it shares commonalities with plutonium used in experimental rocket fuels.
Element 115 has its own lore in UFO history. So this was said to be an element described by a gentleman named Bob Lazar, who claimed to have worked just south of Area 51 on an ET flying saucer.
The government is holding 9 alien spacecraft that are propelled by a modified gravity generator. Work is being conducted 15 miles south of Green Lake at that isolated area only, designated as S4, that at least one of those crafts operate.
According to what Lazar said, these alien craft ran on element 115. And there's no evidence that we have this even occurring naturally anywhere on Earth. Well, it turns out that scientists now claim to have created element 115 by atomic collisions.
Just a little video clip of Bob Lazar talking about element 115 way before its existence. So let's get into this theory. So, maybe I proved the existence, maybe I didn't. So allegedly, Dwight D. Eisenhower signed an agreement with aliens giving them the right to abduct humans on January 20th, 1961, in exchange for technology like the ones that Bob Lazar claimed to have operated on. And do I think it's a coincidence that Betty and Barney Hill were allegedly abducted only 8 months after the agreement? I think not. See, there's no way that's not connected. So when Carl Sagan had sent this little message out to space, it depicted the picture of the solar system, the planet we inhabit, the average height of a human being, the human genome, numbers, and the values of our numbers here on Earth, and the most abundant resource in our solar system, which is hydrogen. And over here in a crop circle, we had received this message back, which depicts a picture of an alien around 4 to 5 feet tall, inhabit the 3 stars in their solar system, and the most abundant element as silicon. So in 2002 in Crabwood, UK, there was this crop circle that depicted a picture of an alien and a little Morse dialect code. And when it was decoded, it read out, "Beware the bearers of false gifts and their broken promises." Could this be referring to the exchange that we have for technologies and the right to abduct humans? See, it's connected. But the whole purpose of this Ed Talk is to actually prove that the Earth is flat. But no, just kidding. The actual purpose is for entertainment and maybe to open up your minds to the existence of aliens. And have you guys ever had a teacher lie to you?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I don't see why the government wouldn't lie to you about this stuff. So, yeah, thank you.